A very good day I would like to bid to my fellow lecturer and also to my classmates. Firstly, my name is Remini Martin, and for today I would like to explain more about the abstract and also the theory. Firstly, I would like to talk about the abstract. Okay, when it comes to the abstract, there's three main points. The first point is to determine the height of the meta-center using the tilting method. The second point is the x values and the theta values are obtained by putting the ponton and also the pillar, which are in a horizontal and vertical weights, into the water tank. And the third thing is the results obtained from the experiment conducted, which shows the fluctuation within the certain given values. Okay, so now I would like to talk about the theory part. So when it comes to theory, I will firstly explain about the theory which happens in our real life application, and later on I will talk about the theory related to the experiment we are conducting. So firstly, now I will start with the real life application. Okay, basically the theory is the knowledge on the stability of pontons such as the floating ship. In order to know whether the ship is stable, unstable or in a critical condition, it can be determined by the height of the center of gravity, which is the CG. Thus, when it comes to conducting the experiment, the stability and the ponton is determined with a center of gravity at different heights. So now I would like to talk about the application in our experiment. Okay, the theory about the application in our experiment. So basically, when it comes to conducting our experiment, the stability of the ponton is determined with the center of gravity at different heights. The results obtained is compared with the calculation method. Thus, there are so many kinds of units, symbols, representations are used when calculating the results. Those can be obtained in the slide and also in our PowerPoint, which we have presented to you. So basically in this theory part, it explains more about the types of symbol they used and also the meaning of each symbol. For example, there's a capital letter of W and also small letter of W. It brings so many different kind of meaning towards this experiment conducted. Then there's GM, there's BM. It all states what kind of meaning it is and all. So basically this is what I can talk about the abstract and also the theory. Next, I will pass to my group mates. Thank you.
Okay, hello doctor. So before we get into the methodology, I will share with you the apparatus that are needed to conduct this experiment. So the apparatus are ponton and pillar with horizontal and vertical weight, a ruler, ponton stabilizer and water tank. So as you can see, there is a picture in this video which consists of all the apparatus that we need in order to conduct this experiment. So okay, next is the methodology. Okay, so now we get into the methodology, or also known as the procedures. So the first step of this experiment is to remove the horizontal weight and fix the height of the vertical weight on the mast of the ponton. Okay, step number 2 is the center of gravity, or also known as CG, is determined by setting the ponton mast on the ponton stabilizer. The CG length, which is half the distance from the center of vertical weight, is measured. Step number 3, the horizontal weight is being fixed and the thread are ensured to be located at 0 mm after there is no tilting occurred. Step number 4, the water tank just now is filled with water, and then you place the ponton inside the tank. Step number 5, the length of a ponton that is immersed in the water is measured using the ruler, as you can see in this video. Step number 6, the horizontal weight is shifted 10 mm to the right, and the tilt angle of the thread is being recorded. As for this, you can record the data inside the table provided. Step number 7, So the previous step, which is step number 6, is repeated, but this time you need to shift the horizontal weight with an increment of 10 millimeter to the right, and then record the angle of tilt. This step is being repeated until the plumb bob, which is hanging on the thread, reach the side of the pontoon, which means that it goes until the limit. Okay, then step number 8, step 6 and 7 is being repeated, but this time you move the horizontal weight to the left. Okay, the last step, the height of vertical weight is adjusted to a new height, and steps 1 until 3 is repeated and followed by steps 5 until 8. The test was done for two different values of vertical height, because before for the first for the test one, you start from the position 1, as you can see in this video. Then the second test you start from the number 2, and then the last one you start from number 3, which is from the top of the vertical weight. Then you go to the middle part, then lastly you go to the base, the lowest part. Okay, that's all for our methodology. I will pass to my group mate.
Hi doctor, my name is Chang Wan-jie, and I will briefly explain the result we obtained from the experiment. We had done this experiment in 3 different positions of the vertical height, which is top, middle, and bottom. Each position we had conducted experiment twice, to which moved the horizontal wave to right and to left. We had recorded the center of gravity CG and the distance by the horizontal weight is moved, that's D. Meanwhile, we also recorded the distance we also by which the horizontal weight is moved, that is X, and the angle of tilt in degree. From the data collected, we can calculate the GM, which is distance between body center of gravity to the center of matter from the equation given. As we can see, the data obtained have been transferred into graph. The graph of GM versus angle of tilt, that is data for each test, has been plotted. The first graph shows that the data obtained from the top of the vertical height. The left side is the graph of GM versus theta for the movement to the right, while the right side is the graph of GM versus theta for the movement to the left. When theta is equal to 0, the GM value for movement to the right is 26.554 millimeters, while for the movement to the left is 38.02 millimeters. For the second graph, it shows that the data obtained from the middle of the vertical height, same as the slide above. The left side is the graph of GM versus theta for the movement to the right, and the right side is the graph of GM versus theta for the movement to the left. When theta equal to 0, the GM value for this graph for the movement to the right is 64.951 millimeters, while for movement to the left is 44.347 millimeters. For the third graph, it shows that the data obtained from the bottom of vertical height, same as the above, left side is GM versus theta for the movement to the right, and the right side is GM versus theta for the movement to the left. Similarly, when theta equal to 0, the GM value for movement to the right is 91.09 millimeters, while for the movement to the left is 72.175 millimeters. Next, we calculated the value of GM for each test using an area of second moment and compare the obtained value with the value of GM from the graph. The result by calculating for test 1, which is from the top, is 80.67 millimeters. From test 2, for test 2, which is middle part, is 109.17 millimeters, while for the test 3 is 133.67 millimeters. The value obtained by calculating is divided directly from the data obtained from the graph. Based on the value obtained, we are assuming that the bottom mass is symmetry, therefore the angle of tilt on the thread must be equally the same because of the shifting of the web to both sides. But since there are some parallax error during the process of experiment, it cannot be achieved and cause the deviation occur. We will state the improvement or recommendation in the conclusion letter.
Hello everyone, my name is Muhammad Amran. I'll be explaining about the discussion part starting from question number 3 until conclusion. Okay, based on the question given, discuss the reliance of the meta center on the position of the center of gravity in terms of stability of floating body. Okay, there's a lot of points in this question actually. I will start off with the meta center depend on the intersection between two vertical lines through the center of buoyancy created when the body is displaced. Therefore, if meta center is above center of gravity, buoyancy force will form a righting moment where it is back to its equilibrium form. Next also, when the center of gravity changes, the center will also change accordingly. Therefore, it will only affect the position of the meta center only. The meta center does not depend on the center of gravity. Next, discuss the effect of variation in angles of tilt on the position of the meta center. Okay, so the position of the meta center is directly proportional to the 1/tan theta based on the equation above. So as the theta decrease, the GM will increase, and also vice versa. Like if the theta increase, the GM will decrease. So based on the question above, the angle of tilt will affect the position of the meta center because when the horizontal weight is shifted either to the right or to the left, it will actually inflict the angles of tilt since the center of gravity and the center of buoyancy changes position. Therefore, meta center depend on the change of the vertical line through the center of buoyancy or the angle. In conclusion, the objective of this experiment was achieved, but however, the result is quite different with the theoretical value that was obtained from the given equation. This is because, hold on, we can actually confirm that the metacentric height can give a huge effect to the stability of the pontoon floating on water. Besides that, the vertical height of the pillar also affect the center of gravity, which is also affecting the stability of pontoon. So as the depth of submerged part also change when the vertical height changes. Therefore, we can conclude that the metacentric is very important to maintain the stability of a body, especially a boat when faces a huge wave, so that it will not sink. As a recommendation, as the precautionary steps that should be taken to get a better result compared to the theoretical value are by placing the position of the eye perpendicular by placing the position of the eye perpendicular to the scale of meter ruler to avoid parallax error when taking the reading. We also can make sure the plumb bob really stop before taking the reading, and always adjust the thread at 0 mm to avoid tilting during initial step of experiment. That's all from us. Thank you very much.